The border has been in the news quite a bit lately, but what about border aviation? Well, let's talk to a border pilot in the hangar. Hi, and welcome to In the Hangar. I'm Dan Milliken.
And I'm Christy Wong. Today's episode is brought to you by our awesome sponsors like Flying Eyes. We're going to talk more about them later, and you can find them in the links below, but we're here to talk about kind of a cool topic today.
Yeah, border, of course, that's been in the news and will be for a long time. But we have Daniel Flores. Daniel, you were on before because not only were you been a border patrol pilot, you actually flew Apaches in Afghanistan, and that was a really interesting episode. Thanks for coming back.
No, thanks for having me back.
Okay, so you were an Apache pilot, and then you went to the Border Patrol. Talk about that transition, how you came out of the military, and what you did for the Border Patrol.
Actually, I did them at the same time.
Oh, you did?
Yes, I was in the Army Reserves flying the Apache, and while I was there, that's where I was introduced to one of the other pilots that was a pilot for U.S. Customs at the time. And he'd seen me fly, and he said, hey, why don't you give it a shot to get on with U.S. Customs, flying with them. At that time, I was trying to get on with the airlines. This was the mid-1990s. And I thought, well, I took a look at it, and I saw that with U.S. Customs, you could fly both jets and helicopters. I thought, that sounds pretty cool. I figured I'd give it a shot. And if I didn't like it, at least I'd get my jet time in and head off for the airlines after that. So that's when I ended up applying for U.S. Customs in 1997. It took them a couple of years to get me on board, 1999.
Oh, wow.
So 1999, I got on U.S. Customs, and it remained that name until 2001, until 9/11. Actually, right after that, that's when it became U.S. Customs and Border Protection, all under the Department of Homeland Security, which also encompassed Border Patrol. At that time, I had done a few missions down on the border with Arizona, the Mexican border with Arizona, and that was called ABCI, Arizona Border Control Initiative. And at that time, early 2000s to about 2005, it was mainly for the drug trafficking that was coming across through Arizona. So all that was fine until I went to war in 2006 with the Army Reserves. And when I came back, that's when the mission kind of changed from drugs in Arizona to illegals coming across the border down in South Texas. So all through that time, from about 2007 until 2010, I was doing both Arizona but Rio Grande Valley sector down out of McAllen, chasing illegals down there. At that time also is when, towards the end of 2009 or 10, is when the family units started showing up. And I don't know if people remember, but Nancy Pelosi had made a trip down there to McAllen to see how bad it really was for these family units. And kind of a little political here, but the day that she showed up, we were told to go fly our missions, do not come back to the McAllen sector, the McAllen area, stay off to the east and west along the border, don't come back here until the end of the day. When I took off that day from the McAllen airport, I noticed there was a bunch of buses all lined up at the south end of the airport there, so I didn't think much of it. When I got back that evening, watched the news, and it showed Nancy Pelosi saying how, I wish I could take one of these kids with me back home, and all that stuff. And these Border Patrol processing stations are not overcrowded, which is what congressmen and everybody else was trying to tell them, that it was all overcrowded. Those buses housed all the people that were in the processing stations for that day. They bust them out of there and only kept a minimum amount of people in the processing stations. Don't know why they did that, but...
Wait, you mean to tell me that not everything we see on TV is true?
Wow.
Or that the politicians aren't, they're
weird.
spinning things to make things look different than they really are?
Yes.
No, please don't burst my bubble here.
I have to tell you this, yes.
I mean, and not to get super political or anything like that, because obviously there's different sides here, right? And I don't want to get super political, but there's a reason why you guys are put into place. Like you were showing me some pictures right before we started the episode of why you do this.
Yes.
So can we talk a little bit about that?
Yes. So
Because I think it's important for people to understand this.
yes, the people that were coming across the border at that time were all illegal. They were entering our country illegally. And Border Patrol, the ground guys, just didn't have enough air assets to support the massive influx of people that were coming across the river, well, around the bridges, all that sort of stuff. So that's where I got called in to help support them down there.
And you were showing me pictures of things that were being brought across
Yes.
the border with these individuals. Can you talk about that?
Yes, so we would, on an average day, we would get, and no day was average down there. So every morning we'd have the briefing, and that's the weather, which aircraft are up, who's going with who. And I say this because I came down as a pilot, not knowing the area. They would put a Border Patrol agent that's on the ground there, put him in the helicopter with me. And also, because he
And
knew
what
the
kind of
areas.
helicopter?
An A-Star helicopter.
Okay.
Single engine turbine A-Star helicopter, which is a perfect helicopter for that mission because it was air conditioned and had plenty of power. So after the mission brief, or during the mission brief, I should say, give us the weather, and they'd say, okay, this is what was happening last night on this border checkpoint. You know, there was a group of maybe 150 that came across, and they're still looking for, stragglers that they couldn't find. And then over here on this section here, stay away from that area because the agents have an ongoing case where there is drugs that are about to cross the border and all. And so we would get launched, and then they would say like, oh, and right now in this section, Daniel, you head off over here to the west towards Rio Grande City. They've got an active pursuit right now of, say, 100, 200 illegals, and they can't catch them all. So we got to go over there literally like rounding up cattle, help the ground agents round up all the people that had scattered off into the brush and all. So,
And there were a lot of drugs that you guys were
Yes.
intercepting.
And
And these are the
that's-
ones that you intercepted. These aren't the ones that made it over.
exactly. Yeah, or as what they call now, they're saying now on the news, the gotaways and all. We used that term way back then. But the gotaways are the ones that, say, a group of 100. What the cartels would do is they would get a group of, say, 200 and say, you're going to cross here. And while they're doing that, when we're all sending all the ground agents, air assets, and all that to that area, 2, 3, 5 miles upriver or downriver, they'll send the drugs across.
Oh, man.
And so that was the good thing about the helicopter because we would help round up as many of the illegals that were trying to get away. And then at the same time, we'd get hits on the ground monitors, which is what you saw on the game cam. We would get hits on that saying like, hey, we've got a group of maybe 10 or 15. That's the drugs and all. And they would do that deliberately all the time to draw as many of the assets away from the real target.
So what was your job in the helicopter? Was it to just identify and then radio down to the ground units? I mean, did you ever have to, what was your job?
The job was basically to, yes, help out the ground guys on whatever they were doing. And you say this, whether it's rounding up people, rounding up drugs, or as I showed the screen grabs on the video, is chasing the illegals that did not want to get caught, that were already on vehicles trying to head up to the checkpoint. And that's what that one video was on one morning brief. They said, hey, Omaha was our call sign. Omaha, y'all need to get up in the air north of McAllen and get with the agents there. They've got a group that's about to load up. So this is already about 20 miles north of the river. So this group of illegals had already crossed a day before, 2, 3, 4 days earlier, and they'd made their way up to this, it was a ranch, 20 miles north of the border, kind of out in the middle of nowhere. And so we'd have to climb up to about 8,000, 10,000 feet.
Wow.
Oh, wow.
Because the cartels own the border from Brownsville to San Diego, they owned the border.
Oh, wow.
So, and that's the same thing, leaving from the McAllen Airport where the base was, everybody would leave to the north. We'd go north for about 20 miles or so, and then we'd go either east or west, whichever way, because the cartels have snitches in the apartment complexes or the houses there, and they would tell them, like, hey, yeah, this helicopter 810 Alpha Mike, it just departed to the north, at 9:30 in the morning, and somebody up north be on, oh, here they are. Hey, they'd be telling, the cartel guys, yep, they're heading west.
Would they shoot at you guys? Like, is that an actual?
Yeah, well, we've had helicopters hit, both
okay.
with rocks and with gunfire.
Yeah, that's.
And
Well, I mean, in your other job as flying the Apache, did you ever think, forget the A-Star, give me an Apache?
well, we did.
Oh, wow.
This is not widely known, but in 1996, we were tasked. Our unit was tasked to go down to Eagle Pass.
Oh, really? I've heard that name recently.
Yeah, this is 1996, back in the
Wow.
1900s. They had.
When you put it like that,
Yeah.
by the way,
It's way
oh
back
my
then.
gosh.
We were actually based out of the Air Force Base there in Del Rio. They don't want us to talk about that. But we were based there. And then when nightfall came, we were, due to the law posse comitatus, where the military cannot be used for law enforcement
Yeah.
activities, we would do training missions with the night vision and the FLIR with the Apache, and using the ground guys, the Border Patrol agents, as our ground reconnaissance guys to,
Help the training.
yes, and that's
Yeah.
what it was. So yes, we were already doing that with the Apache back then.
Right.
And so now here we are in the 2000s with Customs and Border Protection, helping out Border Patrol with the A-Star helicopter. So several things. One, I'd have the Border Patrol agent with me running the camera, and during the daytime, he knows all the places. They don't tell us where we're going to patrol over non-secure radios by name. They just give us a sensor number. The agent knows it. He has it on his little deal and says, okay, let's fly west for about 10 miles, and he'll see, like, oh, here's Benson Park, here's this or that. Okay, turn south here and fly along. Okay, this whole area right here is where we're going to look. Now, the reason they do that is because the radios had gotten compromised several times down there by Border Patrol agents that had gone bad.
Oh.
And so we did several missions on that too, trying to find who the Border Patrol agent is by going on missions that were fake missions.
Right.
Trying to draw
Did you
out.
find him? Did you find him?
Yes, they do.
Yes.
And,
Okay. Sorry.
so-
I
And,
need
and I agree with you. It's like, yeah, we got them. It's really sad, though.
But it's sad
Well,
that
yeah,
that was
of
somebody
course,
you
but-
trusted.
Right. That was another.
Somebody the country trusted.
Right. And that's when actually with Border Patrol and all that back in I want to say it was around 2007, 8-ish, is when it actually went up to Congress that they found a lot. The cartel was sending their people to get on with Border Patrol.
Oh,
Oh,
my.
wow.
And
They're infiltrating.
Yeah,
Ugh.
way back in the 1990s,
Wow.
the cartels, Los Zetas, a lot of them were actually trained up by our special forces in the Army. And that's
Yeah,
where they
the
found out
Zetas and- yeah.
a lot of them had specifically gone just regular Army infantry basic training or even Marine Corps infantry training, gotten all the weapons training, all that, and then just went AWOL and went back and
Well, that's
brought all the training back.
disheartening.
So that's when they had the background investigations that is the reason we're having a very hard time getting pilots with Border Patrol and Customs is because a lot of people, it's not that they don't pass the background investigation, it's that the lie detector test it's inconclusive. So you either pass it or you fail it or it's inconclusive. Well, you didn't pass, it's inconclusive, so we can't take you on.
Oh, that's interesting.
But anyway,
So is there a lot of jobs available right now for pilots on the
oh, yeah.
border?
Yeah.
Oh, interesting. And then when did you leave the Border Patrol?
I retired from them in 2021, or 2020.
Okay, well, okay. We got political a little bit earlier. I am going to ask a political question, so apologize to you guys out there. But let's go back to 2021 and the whole, the horse reins whipping the horse, and the optics looking like that they were whipping the people, and Biden and everybody, slammed the Border Patrol for that. How did that make the Border Patrol feel, you guys down there?
We were absolutely infuriated that the media had played perfectly into the liberals' hands by framing that picture, framing that video, and
When all they were doing was moving their horses. They weren't
Yes.
whipping anybody.
Yes.
Okay, then follow that up. And the reason why I started with that is because I'm curious. Now you're retired, but in Eagle Pass today, where there's the big brouhaha with the state of Texas fighting the federal government, Abbott versus Biden, and the state taking over Eagle Pass. How does the Border Patrol? How do the agents on the ground feel about that?
Well,
It's a loaded.
it's a very loaded question. Everybody knows everybody, and a lot of the National Guard guys, they're also Border Patrol agents. It's just their weekend duties with the National Guard.
Just like you were with.
Right.
Yeah.
So we're all the same people and they know also that it's just a political slant of the media.
Right.
Is what's going on. And even the park, not Benson, but the park there at El Paso, because I'd gone down there based out of Uvalde. We would fly down there. Remember, about 5 years ago, they showed up in the morning where they had the picture of all the DPS cars in that park on the river. And at 6 o'clock in the morning, they'd all turn on their lights and everything. And then on the Mexican side, on the Mike side, as we call it, sure enough, there's the one lone Mexican federale in his car. And they can't afford electricity, so you'd have a candle. Go, yeah, show you that. But no, they would. So every morning we would show up on the border at 6 o'clock in the helicopter, and same thing. We'd have all the lights on the helicopter, and it has a siren and the wigwags. At 6 o'clock we do stand to, and all. And once that was over with, after 5 minutes, everybody goes off, Whataburger, whatever, and all.
What was the point of that?
It was political. It was just a show of force for the cameras.
Okay.
And
Optics stand.
Yeah, it was
Do
all
they
optics.
slate it and everything?
Yeah.
That's amazing.
And so one of the good or bad things about that, everybody was crossing north of that. North of it about, say, upriver from Eagle Pass by about, I'm gonna say about 5 miles, because we got called over there. And sure enough, there was a whole group with men, women, and children. They'd get halfway across the river onto a little island, and then they would wait. Now, could they have crossed the last 50 feet onto our side? It got pretty deep, and the water was pretty rushing pretty fast there. So they would just wait, and then sure enough, DPS showed up, Border Patrol shows up, and then Border Patrol, their boat would show up, and then they'd have to start ferrying everybody across onto our side, which is because they won't. If we did not start picking them up, they would say, okay, you get in the water, knowing that they can't swim. And so then once they get in the water and they start flailing, it's just, we're Americans. So we're going to go in there, we're going to rescue that person. They say, all right, everybody go.
And flail.
Yeah, everybody go. And so rather than do that, which happened a couple of times, it's like, all right, get on the boat. They put the boat up to the little island, get everybody on the boat, bring them across and all that. So.
Well, I know Christy loves when I get political, so I'll continue this for one more question.
Okay.
The situation today, you talked about early on, it was drugs.
Yeah.
Drugs coming across the border. Then it became families and just illegal immigration.
Yes.
Is there any truth to the news that's coming out as somebody who's been there of military age single male Chinese coming over in droves? And is there a new problem with an invasion in that regard, or is that just optics from the right wing?
It's not new.
Okay.
It's not new at all. And yes, it is. I would say 90% of the ones, and this is all back through the teens and all, both in Arizona, New Mexico, and here in Texas, it was all military-aged individuals from Latinx. Everybody's South. But I say this because if we ever had, and we called them exotics, and these are the ones from the Middle East or Asia or whatever.
Or China, yeah.
Yeah, we call them exotics. And originally, when the first ones came across, and I say originally, in 2010-ish, it's like, oh, wow, these guys are actually from Iraq.
Right.
You know, or these guys are from China, and all. A phone call's made, and next thing you know, it's the main group's over here, and these two exotics, the men in suits, show up, and we never see them again. So who knows what?
But now that's
Now it was back then, and it is now. It's well over 90% are military-aged guys. Military-aged guys that are they're not families. And I
Right.
say this because when I did one of my last missions out of El Paso, it was to, wow, I don't know if you remember this, but it was like spring of 2020, if not late 19. They had it was a huge, it's like 2,000 illegals came up through the boot heel of New Mexico. And so I was there for that. And so we fly out of El Paso, right along the border. It's really pretty cool flying that part of the border. Take the boot heel south, and I want to say it was Antelope Wells or whatever the name of that port of entry, the POE is. But that's where they sent well over 2,000 people. Okay, when they did that, if you look on a map, on Google Maps, you'll see on the east side of the boot heel, there's all these big crop circles, you know, the irrigation deals. Those are the Mennonites. And the cartels pay them for access to come into the United States with their drugs. So
Really?
they put the 2,000 people here and totally inundate Border Patrol sector there with all those people, and then they come through with the drugs here. But that wasn't, what also happens on that is that they put the people, this is the other thing a lot of people don't understand is when you get that many people showing up, once they're here on the United States border, or in the United States, I should say, we have to take care of them. If one of them gets hurt or anything like that, and we don't provide medical aid right away, the ACLU and the Southern Poverty Law Center, they're suing the United States government, us, the taxpaying people. And 10 times out of 10, they win. And so a couple of $1 million here, they don't go to the families that they just represented. It goes to the ACLU and Southern Poverty Law Center.
So they're looking for a reason, is what you're saying.
Right. And so all those people now, they put them up in Deming at the airport because I flew up there. And sure enough, so now you've got to, as that Border Patrol sector chief, you have to find a place to put these people. And then once you have them there, to get them processed, then you have to provide porta-cans, you have to provide air conditioning, heating, whatever happens to be for the day, the food and all that sort of stuff. All this is, right now for all these people. And so the media's there and they're saying like, hey, how come you're not providing them with this? How come you have everybody stuffed in here? How come you have, 500 people in a hangar, that there's not enough room and there's not enough beds? And why are you separating the men, the adults from the children? Because this is the other thing that was happening was they would take Juana Maria from south side on the Mike side of El Paso and say, today, come with us. They would drive them over there to where they're going to cross all the family units. They're not family units, but they'll say, okay, today, this is your mom and this is your dad. And you stay with them, and when you get processed, that's your mom and dad until you get up to Deming, to the processing station. Once you get there, they're going to put you on a bus, and they're going to send you to wherever in the United States that they said they were going to go, them with their kids. Once you get to that first pit stop there in Las Cruces, the bus is going to stop, and everybody's going to get out to use the bathroom and all. You get out, and you look for the guy with the sign that says, Juana Maria. That's you two kids. And you go with him. Once you get with him, he's going to take you back to the Mike side, and here's your $20. You're going to do it again tomorrow.
Whoa.
So it wasn't their kids, but they're using the kids to get them.
okay,
through
which
POE.
then leads to we've talked about all that. I promise no political, but
We're down the rabbit hole.
yeah.
Let's just do it.
Now it sounds like human trafficking. Surely that's not happening on the border.
No, that's not happening. Yeah, and it's that's really the very really really sad thing. So down in McAllen, there is a spot, and I have to show in a map, but there's a spot that's got this probably about a 15-foot by 15-foot house that looks like a little chapel. There's no door on it, there's no windows on it and all, but it's maybe about 500 feet from the river. As we were flying along the river, sure enough, the agent says, like, hey, let's check out the house there. I think he called it the temple. Anyway, circle it, and sure enough, he goes, there's a kid in there. And that's what they would do on the Mike side, is they would say, okay, you, and these are two kids, now this is way back, like I said, 2008-ish. They would say, we're taking you across the river. When you get there, here's your letter. And what that letter, it says, like, my mom and dad are in Chicago. And so there you go. So when the Border Patrol agents come and pick them up, they take them to processing, INS or ICE, immigration side of the deal. They process them and say, okay, where's your mom and dad? Oh, it says here on the letter. They're in 1313 Mockingbird Lane, Chicago. And okay, so I guess now we got to send you to Chicago. Everybody's paying, we're paying for that. The scary thing about that was the one time we circled, and sure enough, there was about two kids in there. And so we're calling on the radio saying, hey, get one of the BP agents out here to come pick up the kids. And then coming up the road was, we're talking a big cat, we're talking a mountain lion, was strolling up the road looking for food. And we're
Like
like,
an
oh,
actual mountain
yeah,
lion?
like a real one.
This is not
And,
like a code name.
Oh, no,
Okay.
it was a real deal.
Oh, my gosh.
Yeah, and so it's coming up, and it was still maybe about a half a mile away. And so we're saying, hey, man, get up here now. This cat's coming, get some food. And so we chased the cat with the helicopter back.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So now, and I say this because on the Mike side there of McAllen, before the big flood of, I think it was Allison, there was a cartel guy there that had lions, tigers, and bears. He had his own little zoo
my.
right there. And when the flood came, it was all wiped out. But several of the big cats ended up on our
wow.
side. And yeah.
All right, well, that's such a rosy
Wow.
picture of everything. Let's.
I wanted to ask about this thing
Yeah.
here, but
Yeah.
it just seems not heavy enough for the conversation.
Well, let's okay, we did the political. Let's pack it away.
Okay.
What do we have here?
Okay, so part of the mission, like I said, flying the helicopter for Customs and Border Protection, helping out Border Patrol. We would fly with night vision goggles, and so night vision goggles amplify light. And on the helicopter, we had the camera with the FLIR camera, and it had infrared. It detects heat. So at night, we use both to actually look for the dope that's coming across. And I say this because one of the missions we did with night vision and such, Rio Grande City, we had already seen the Mexicans loading up the dope on a road on their side, preparing to come to the river and bring it across. So everybody stays away from there. And then when we showed up, we have to be, and we're talking over 10 miles away and over 10,000 feet up in the helicopter. So I'm looking with the goggles.
Wow.
And the agent's looking with the FLIR, because the FLIR, the camera's got long-range optics and infrared. And so sure enough, we're that far away. And then sure enough, when the time comes, we watch them bring the load across the river, which is on the rafts, the big bundles.
Yeah.
And all. Then it's a whole speed timing deal, because then they're saying, okay, once they've got everything offloaded onto our side, and then we start seeing the truck coming in down the road, then it's like hauling butt trying to get down there, because now all the agents are coming in and trying to get everything timed just right to where they've got everything loaded up in the trucks. There's no way they can go. They can't go back across the river or nothing like that. By that time, I'm down 10 feet, 20 feet off the ground, helping them, and I'm using the night vision goggles to look outside, looking for the bad guys. The camera operator, he's looking with the FLIR, looking for the hot spots, because, yeah, those guys. But that's the really scary part, is because that's when they'll shoot. And so we're totally blacked out. No lights are on in the helicopter, and yeah.
All right. Well, if you're looking for danger, adventure, and mountain lions,
Fly for the
the border
Patrol.
protection.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, Daniel, thanks so much for coming
thank
again.
you, guys.
Yeah, thank you so
Thank
much.
you.
It's nice to see you.
All right. And thank you guys for watching. And our content's provided by our sponsors like Clemens Insurance, clemensinsurance.net. Jerry saved me a lot of money.
Do they insure against mountain lions?
We'll have to ask Jerry. But he
Okay.
67 Designs, best mounts for your plane, your boat, your car, for your phone, your tablets. They're awesome. Also, Marshall Protective Services, mpsprotects.com, personal protection elevated. And
Z-Vision.
Z-Vision, xevision.com, the brightest landing and taxi lights, and Flying Eyes.
Flying Eyes.
If you go to flyingeyesoptics.com and use our discount code, taking off all caps one word, you'll get 10% off.
Did we get them all?
Let's see. Yes. So
And you already thanked our viewers. Thank you guys so much. Please like, subscribe, share our videos. We'll see you all next time
in the hangar.
on the border.